Hello everybody and welcome to Azumi Game Season 2. I guess that's what we're calling this. Just came to me and we're gonna roll with it, I suppose. It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I've been hard at work on the game ever since the last devlog over on my old channel, which hopefully are included in this playlist. Hopefully I was not lazy and forgot to make the playlist and talk about the playlist and let everybody know there was a playlist with Devtober, all of Devtober from last October, documenting the very beginnings of making a Azumi game. But we're here in June talking about the next step. Azumi game, for those who might not have been paying attention and just found out about these devlogs from the ad I put up on IM Games, Azumi game, the demo was pretty much finished, the vertical slice, posted on Newgrounds and Itch, got a lot of good response. People seem to like it, so I'm moving forward with the full Azumi game. This is going to be a small project because it's still my first game and I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, even though some of the ideas I've been having for the full product are very ambitious and kind of scary, but we're just going to go for it and see how much of that can be done. The final game of Azumi is tentatively planned to have 4 levels and 4 bosses. Don't know if there'll be anything in terms of secrets and stuff like that, but there will be some upgrades in terms of like getting new moves and abilities as you play the game. I've already started building features for that, and we'll look at that in just a second. So that's the idea, a 4-level classic 16-bit side-scroller for the first full Azumi game. That will be done whenever it's fucking done. I still need to talk to people about getting more music from Sixten and Adar, since people like the soundtrack for the game on Newgrounds. I like the soundtrack a lot, so I'd like to keep working with them if possible. And I also plan on, like I said a fuck ton of time ago about Azumi in general, I wanted it to be kind of have a strong communal value. So some of the enemy designs from Azumi game, the ogre, and well, there's a couple. I think the ogre's the only one in the demo. The other 3 I created myself, but I've gotten character designs from some of my artist friends, and I'd like to open that up to more people. Just be like, if you have a cool idea for a Azumi game, let me know. Maybe I'll use it. And so that way, like, the entire community can kind of feel like they're contributing. And I'll talk about this more in a future devlog when I get to that point when I'm going to start needing to build more assets. Because right now, what I'm focused on primarily since finishing the last update for the vertical slice on Newgrounds and shifted focus from fixing bugs that people were reporting from the demo to make sure that the foundation, because I'm still using the same foundation for the full game, is functional. I focused on figuring out and nailing down what Azumi's moveset is going to be. Because my gut reaction was to go for level design, because that's like the big elephant in the room and like the thing that I know the least about, and start studying level design and really start building some things out, some test areas, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. However, I knew that I was going to have upgrades and new moves that Azumi is going to have, in addition to the handful of skills she had in the demo. So I figured it would be a terrible idea to start with the level design, because if she gets new traversal mechanics, I'd have to retool all the levels that I'd already started working on to accommodate the new mechanics. So the thing right now is I'm trying to build all the mechanics, at least in a functional form, if not final visually, so I understand exactly what Azumi is going to have and at what points. So I've been working on that for the most part. If you haven't seen anything about this game since the last devlog, there have been a lot of graphical changes. I added outlines to all the sprites to make them pop off the background a bit more, which we can see if we zoom in, you know, some outlines and stuff there, which is nice. So that looks a lot better in motion. There are also some tweaks and things that I've done to the gameplay to make it flow a bit better. So I'm going to mute this and we can actually start, and I'll kind of dig into some of the more specific things that we've been building. By we, I mean me, because I have no team. This is still going to be similar to anyone. I changed the font of the sprite font to make everything look a bit nicer to read. So one thing you may notice right off the bat is that the hit stop has been tweaked significantly, and it makes the hits feel a lot juicier, especially air stuff. So if I jump up, it gets that extra little oomph that really makes it feel good, and it really comes together with the sound and stuff. So like if I turn sound back on for a second. feels really good. That's probably going to sound like shit because it's going to come through both the computer and the monitor. Oh well, maybe I'll cut that. So that's one of the first major tweaks. Another thing is that I was having issues with hit stop, and that only the first enemy, like if you killed enemies in rapid succession, only the first one would trigger the hit stop. That bug has been fixed. It's been bugging me since well into the development of the vertical slice. I'm still using the vertical slice arena here as a test area because I have a dedicated like test area that I've been using. We can actually go back to that just if I'm going to talk about it over here, that I've just tweaked and dumped things in to test in a sterile environment, and it has its own event sheet. So all the new mechanics I've been adding on top of what I already have, non-destructively, so if I ever have to roll anything back, it's not too integrated with the rest of the system. This was another thing that I did. I separated all the events of the game into separate event sheets. So all the player logic, all the enemy logic, all the specific area, in arena, like level stuff. I separated it all out to make it segmented to be able to test like this, to be able to add things non-destructively, because you can include other events in event sheets. So this is including all the other event sheets, and then I just add on top of it. And then once I'm done, I put those into the places they belong. And it kind of lets me not worry about breaking anything else that already is there by keeping it all separate. So all I'd have to do is just delete everything in here, and I could roll back all the changes that I haven't finished and solidified back to stock, which is helpful. But let's go back to the game here and continue to show some of the other stuff that's here. So there are two new mechanics that I've added to the game so far that change things up pretty significantly. But before we get to them, there's something else I wanted to mention about stamina. So I've adopted a more of a Dark Souls-esque stamina feature, and I don't mean that everything costs stamina and it's now Souls-like. What I mean is that in Dark Souls, when you use your stamina, if you have a very little amount of your stamina bar left and you're doing something like swinging a great axe and it takes like half your bar, you'll still trigger the move, but the bar goes into the negative values and takes longer before it starts refilling again. Azumi game didn't work like this before. If a dodge, for example, cost 4 stamina, if you had 3 stamina, you triggered it, nothing would happen until the bar filled back up to at least 40%, because it's working on a 10 scale in the code. But the problem with that is that since there's no like numbers or indications, it was difficult to eyeball and know when you were going to be able to trigger a move. So I've switched it, so now if you see, if I only have a little bit of stamina, I can still trigger any move. It just takes longer for things to start refilling. Costs for things have increased because of this, to keep everything balanced the way it was before, because right now you can still only do 2 dashes right after another, and with 4 cost, which it was initially, that would have let you do 3 in a row, which became broken very quickly. Like, this probably already is going to have to be toned down a bit once I start building levels, because you can traverse so much distance with the 2 dashes you get. So right now, if I'm over here, I can jump, dash, dash, double jump, and I can make it across the entire level without hitting the ground. So these are things that are going to probably be tweaked, even though they're really fun to use now, and I would like to kind of expand the scope of the levels instead of contracting Azumi's movement options. But yeah, the stamina was a big thing. That combined with the hit stops really changes a lot of the game. So let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to some of the new mechanics that I've added. So the first mechanic I'm going to show you is permanently in Azumi's inventory, so to speak. Her repertoire. This is going to be something you start the game with. Because like I said, some of the new mechanics are going to be rewards for beating bosses. But this one you'll have right from the beginning. And it helps really with these little flyer enemies specifically. But it's useful for anything in the game. Because these guys, especially in this little test area, can be annoying to fight. But now, if I line it up properly, you can see we have a little bit of a jump kick maneuver. And shout out to AJ Shoop and Tio for recommending I add the little backflip at the end. But this is actually pretty fun to use, especially with that backflip response. Gives it a little bit of extra oomph to make it feel like you're doing something effective. Now, this doesn't do a whole ton of damage. It does 1 point of damage, which is the same as the first sword strike in your typical combo. But it's just really fun to use because there's a lot of tactile reaction to when you impact with something. And it's really good because you can actually juggle it. So if you have like 3 enemies in close proximity, you can hit somebody, bounce off, and keep hitting them again. Like, see it change into the double jump and stuff. So it's kind of OP right now, but it is really fun to use. And my idea with this was always to make it not super difficult. I'd rather kind of have it be more of a power fantasy type of game. So this is a fun move to use, and you can see, especially against this guy, you can abuse it pretty easily. So there we go. That's the first mechanic, is this air kick. And you can jump out of it, you can cancel out of it, which was something I was worried about, because like if you commit to the arc, like you could fall into a bottomless pit or something, even though I don't really plan on having bottomless pits because I don't like them. But it works like any other state in terms of like in a kick, you can jump out of it into a double jump. If you have meter, you can go into a dodge. And another important thing I thought is that if you get into a position where you're falling or like hit a cliff or something, if you're double jumping or you're kicking, a little too high, but you can go into a wall slide to prevent you from falling down like a pit or something you might not want to. There's also a level I'm thinking of, not to spoil anything, but that might have a lot of verticality in it. So I thought this mechanic would be especially useful for a level like that, where you're doing a lot of upward and downwards climbing, and a mistimed kick like that you couldn't cancel out of could send you all the way back to the beginning of the level, and that would feel like shit. So being able to cancel out of it I thought was really important. Also, as you've probably noticed, you can redirect in midair, which I just, again, more control is kind of what I'm about. I'd rather have too many options than too little in terms of maneuvering, because I think that's the key to making a platformer like this work, is making sure everything feels and works better than you might expect. So let me just restart and I'll show you the last mechanic that I added. And this is going to be an unlockable. So after beating one of the bosses, you'll unlock this. And the visual effect for it, I don't think is quite finished yet. I haven't really decided. I want to look more into pixel art VFX. I think there was a program I remember looking on Twitter a while ago that helped you make pixel art effects. And because doing them by hand is not fun. But this is a great example. So normally if you had like 2 enemies like this, you'd have to kind of fight them both individually, and I thought that was lame. So if we double tap forward now, we get this dash, and it goes through people. It's like a Stinger from Devil May Cry. That's what inspired the move. And it basically it does a lot of damage, and it takes a lot of stamina though. You can see it takes 80% of your stamina to trigger. So you can see the bar goes almost all the way down, and but it does a lot of damage. You have iframes during the first half of the animation. Well, the second half of the animation. The charge you can get hit by, so you have to kind of think about the timing and make sure you're not about to get hit by something, because you can't really do much while you're doing that charge. You're kind of locked into it, and you'll take any punishment if you mistime it. It's only on the ground as well. You can't do it in the air. It's a ground-based move only. But if you trigger it, it does a lot of damage and can hit multiple people at once. So you can just kind of power through a group of enemies. It feels like an upgrade because, like, let's say, for example, the turret up here, right? These guys take a couple hits, but with this, they just drop in one hit. So it kind of makes a lot of the other enemies a bit easier to deal with, and feels like a good late game reward for, like, yeah, you've proven your worth, you've proven you're able to play the game well. So here's a reward that kind of makes some of the more challenging opponents, and of course, there'll be more than just the enemies here. So it balances the odds a bit more in your favor as a reward for doing and dealing with them kind of in the vanilla style for as long as you have. So you can see over here, go through him, get past him. If we lined it up properly, we'd hit all 3. Oh, and there you go. You can see if you're locked into the charge animation, you can't get out of it. You're going to get punished for it. So those are the 2 mechanics that I've built so far. There's one more that I plan on adding today, actually. I'm going to start building it, and that's like a pinwheel aerial strike. So right now when you do, let me just relaunch the test area again, just do quicker. Right now in the air, you do this simple slash, and you're going to start the game with this slash. But after defeating one of the bosses, you'll get a pinwheel slash, where instead of doing this, it'll change to kind of doing like a spin in the air, kind of like a screw attack sort of deal, but with a blade. So it'll just be like a circle of hits. It'll do like 2 or 3 hits before you cancel out of the animation back into the default jump. But it gives you a wider area to be able to hit things. So again, it'll make aerial combat a bit easier, a bit more cathartic and rewarding as a reward for getting through the game with the vanilla moveset up to that point. So there's one more power-up I'm thinking of possibly adding. It's either going to be another move that I haven't conceptualized yet, or I might just have one of the bosses give you a health and stamina boost. I'll probably have to balance levels that come after that to those new values, but I'm kind of trying to figure out right now if I want to just add another move, or I might want to kind of give some tools in terms of more stamina and more health to add more powerful enemies late game and expand the scope of the levels, because as soon as the stamina increases, your traversal options increase tremendously as you can chain more dashes and stuff off of each other. So one of those is probably more work than the other, so I guess I'll have to figure that out. But that's pretty much it for this update. If you want to play the new version of Azumi right now, if you want to test out these mechanics, you want to give me some feedback, or if you're just really curious in seeing how these new powers change the feel of the game from what's available right now in Newgrounds, you can become a patron. All patrons get access to early builds of the game, and I'll try and have a new build available with every devlog. So I will make a new devlog when there is something significant enough that warrants a new build of the game for you guys to try out. Either that or I'll do weekly, whichever people seem to prefer and whichever seems to make more sense. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. If you want to go to patreon.com/polystation2, you can become a patron and you can get a download link to this right now, which I would appreciate. It would help development. Because I got other people who are probably helping with me, and I'd like to give them a couple bucks. We made a little like $20 over on itch. People donated for the demo, so I split it with the musicians because I figured I didn't expect to make any money off of this. Now that I have a little bit, they neither do. I don't know. Till then, take it easy, guys, and I'll see you in the next vlog.